work gone into it. Got a few problems, nothing great. A little bit of weight transference need to go from the back to the front, probably being created through the 45-gallon fuel tank in the back. But basically overall, she's come up pretty well. Handling is good, and the capability of the car I think is all there for a vehicle that's been built for Australia, and now we'll try it out in the big event. There is a place in this sort of event for a skilled amateur crew with the capability of doing their own thing and building their own vehicle to compete in what is probably the roughest, toughest event that's ever been put on in the world. I think basically that we've got a system that will work, certainly no arguments in amongst it. I'll just divorce my wife and kill my son. All we've got to do now is hope that our engineering expertise on our strengthening systems and that will stand up to the ruling event. We certainly haven't tried that on the Simpson Desert or over the Kimberleys, but we've given her a fair test.
Peter, under normal conditions, not in a trial or a rally, but just driving on the normal road as a normal driver, what are your feelings about other drivers?
According to me, I'm a genius and they're all idiots. According to my wife, I'm a bad-tempered so-and-so and impatient, and I don't really think that you get a true answer until you drive a bus, and I do drive a bus as well once a day, and then you sit up there and you realise that maybe South Australians could just take a little bit quieter. You know, when you're down in amongst it, it all goes boom, boom, boom sort of thing, but when you're sitting up in the back, you think, oh my God, you know, and you're driving something 40 foot long and 9 tonne and it takes, I don't know how long to stop it, and they do some terrible things in front of you. And you can see them getting into situations where they could get out of, or they don't drive. I think the operation where with the experts now is that you should drive defensively. Well, yeah, I'd agree with them. We have a tendency to push on regardless, but from a normal driving position, I don't notice it. But yeah, if you want to learn something about your own driving capability, sit up in the front of a bus.
But if there's, you know, if there is room for feeling and emotion, there must be times though when you feel that you just cannot afford to have any feelings. You've got to be in total control of everything you're doing.
Oh yeah, I think there's been a couple of photographs taken throughout the event, and one of them I denied emphatically that it was me. And I think I was snarling at my trials coordinator, who was a very good friend of mine, Liz Burgeon, and the tension was there. And yes, you can't, in that respect, the rest of the crew and the rest of the service crew must accept the fact that you are under a lot of strain. You know, it's hard work. You know?
Well, you knew that when you really put your family in the front line, who were inexperienced trial drivers anyway, to go in this major event. But you knew what you were putting them in for. I'd just like you to have a look for a moment at your wife Merowyn describing the first major calamity within the first couple of 3 hours out from Melbourne when the trial started and when the front suspension went on you. Just take a look at this for a moment.
And we came around a fast right-hand bend and he said, the car feels funny, there's something wrong. And we went about another 200 yards and all of a sudden the car dipped and we hit a stump and it stopped. And we all got out, had a look. The car was leaning very, very badly, listing to one side on the front. Peter walked down the track, and I don't think ever I could imagine seeing the look on his face as he turned around, and he just said, 18 months of absolute sheer hell and hard work gone down the drain for nothing after 2 hours. And he walked back. We undid the front bonnet of the car, lifted the bonnet, and I'm not very technical on this, but the strengthening that goes across the top of the motor and supports the front of the motor so that the motor doesn't come in, the front of the car doesn't come in, had broken completely. The shockers had blown off and gone right through the bonnet of the car, and the front left-hand ball joint had completely smashed and the left-hand wheel was hanging off.
Did they all pull their weight, the whole family?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking back at Merowyn saying she had to get dirty. We left Perth and we pulled into a garage over there that was organised by Action Food Barns to get some service work done, and one of our service crew pulled off the front wheels and pulled the bearings off, and Merrill was sort of standing there saying, what can I do, what can I do? And he slapped a set of wheelbarrow in the hand and said, grease them. You see, because she'd never ever seen a wheelbarrow before. she'd be ideal now. She can really grease a good wheelbarrow. She knows that it's got to go, the grease has got to come in and come out the other end, and yeah, they adapted well.
Weren't you putting them at risk, though, in an event like that, with inexperience? I mean, weren't they, to put it simply, a hindrance to you and a responsibility?
No, not really. I think basically, Ralph, that's very difficult. It's easy to have hindsight. I think one of the things that I possibly did wrong was not to put them into enough stress. I backed off a little bit, and I should have gone like the Hammers, you know. I used to be a fairly fierce competitor, and I sort of went in this event saying, I'm taking my family with me, and I'm quite happy to just to finish. And I should have done what I've always done, that I'm never happy to finish. I'm always happy to come first, and it's rotten to come second, third, fourth or fifth.
Or even 83rd.
Or even 83rd.
83rd,
whether you come 83rd doesn't matter, but I've made a mistake myself of saying that possibly my crew aren't up to what's needed, and I should take it a bit easier. Because, yeah, they can do anything. Anybody can do anything when they're under stress.
So next time round, you'll be as hard as you can be.
Oh yeah. Next time I'd still take Merrin. I don't know whether I'll take my son again.
Why not?
We've lost him somewhere. We had a bit of a problem going into what we affectionately call the U section, and
The what?
the U section. That's where we came around the corner, and we came to a horror section. And this is where you get into trouble with rallying. And we came out to a national park in Western Australia, and I said, beauty, we can pick up some time now. So I launched it down the road on this good road, and it's got big signs that watch out for tourist buses, so the road's got to be good. And we hit the greatest hole we've ever hit in our life on the good road. And we bounced off the road, and the car, I would say, would have been up at a 45-degree angle, and we were up sideways, you know. And we went across the road, and when they bulldoze, they leave these little edges, and we ended up sliding across this little edge, and I got the car back on its four wheels again, but all the time this was going on, I could hear something in the back going, ooh, ooh, ooh.
So that's
the only time she
section.
really complained. And we got it back onto its wheels again, but we hit a huge rock and bent a tyre at the end, so we had to replace that on the side of the road to straighten it. But in that same section, my son, and this is something that people must understand about rallying, is the tension that you get under. The service vehicle was my son's ute and two of his very good friends that were running, and that stage they went off of a bridge, straight off, 45 feet down, both in hospital, and wrote a $7,000 ute off. It was worth $15 afterwards, with all our gear in it. And
that was a major calamity, wasn't it?
That was a major calamity. He couldn't recover from it. He went on the event, but I think it hurt him. You know, he couldn't understand that these things do happen, and you've got to keep going. That's one of the arts of rallying. We just got him back on his feet again fairly well after we drove from Headland up to Kununurra non-stop. Merrill drove up through the Broome section, which a lot of men reckon they can't drive. She drove in the night, averaged 120 kilometres an hour all the way through it, which I was asleep. And Greg was asleep in the back. At Kununurra, we heard the two lads had got killed, and that put him down again. So, as a rallyist, he's extremely good, but that's what rallying's about.
But it was the reality that hit him.
Yeah, you put guys out there, and some people are ralliers and some people aren't. He's good. Whether we can get him back again, I don't know.
Peter, the other handicap, I would say, as a privateer that you have to confront is competing with factory-backed teams who are all out to win because so much reputation is at stake for them. Is it really an even event between the privateer and the works team?
No, not now. 1970 we were privateers and we ran third against, we beat the Holden dealer team, we beat the Ford dealer team. In this event, the best placed privateer came in fifth, Wes Nowder, in a Toyota. Not taking anything away from Wes, I think he's done a brilliant job, but he is also a fairly successful businessman. So I don't know how much money he put in, but he's still a privateer, so he was brilliant. The factories, no, the factory, Ford's, I would say, put in about 80,000, 100,000 maybe. Would have been fairly good competition for the average privateer, a little bit better, but good competition. The General, to me, killed it.
Just like your comment on this article in the December issue of Penthouse, where Bill Tuckey, in his article Trial by Myth, it seems to me that he's almost trying to justify the Holden GMH approach with statements like this. If you expect the car makers to compete in any major motorsport event today, you must accept that they'll spend as much money as they need to organise a professional attack with an excellent chance of winning. And the process of producing accurate information about such an enormous and complex sporting event defies all the normal practices. The idea of the event, the Repco, is to try to break cars and the crews. Is that a fair summation of what was happening?
Yeah, but I think what he misses out on, and I think Bill Tuckey generally writes on Europe. I wonder if he came back. It's always interesting with some of these guys. The thing is a reliability trial. Now, the amount of money that's put in, Holden's wanted to win it. We're allowed to put the money in, that's fair enough. But I think you get to the stage of an overkill situation where, could anyone in their right mind really believe that those three Commodores could come in first, second and third like clockwork because they had completely just better cars? Has anyone ever bothered to ask what happened to the other 14 Commodores that were in the event? Good luck to them. I think if they want to do this, well then they should have a factory entry and they should have privateers.
As it is at the moment, everybody starts on an equal footing. There's no categories like that.
Excepting that the internationals and the national drivers get drawn in the top places so they get the best run of the road because they don't want to be held up by the ordinary old slow guys. I would like to see that put into a normal draw. I think that would be good so that Peter Brock could possibly draw car 200 and so he'd be separated from the rest of his crews.
They get a preferential draw at the moment.
Oh, well, the experts don't have... they've brought out the new system now where the good guys don't have to pass the also runs. They say it's too dangerous and it holds them back. But of course it also gives the good guys the best chop at the road. I don't really know how you can ever solve it, but reliability is the name of the game, and I would like to see those same cars put in with the same amount of spare parts as what the privateer had, for example, and the same backup and the same amount of money. And it's all right for Bill Tuckey and all these experts to turn around and say they've done this, they've done that, but what other things did they do that may have been not quite legal? We don't really know. Oh, some of us do know, but we're not going to say, are we?
Well, yeah, okay.
No libel suit.
Let's just say you're making assumptions. I guess if there's anything harder or as hard as actually driving in a rally, it must be trying to record it on film and for film crews to keep up with it. We didn't even try. We're not in that event. But here's some of the action in the Kaipo Forest stage. I'd like you to look at that.
I've never seen any of this.
Now, when the trial was on, there was a lot of flack in the news media about critical things about two things. One was what some people call the flagrant waste of fuel in these days, and the other was the effect on the environment. What would you say about that? Particularly, we've just seen cars churning up a country road, not badly in that instance, but no. I think in some cases farmers' access roads were just totally impassable after 200 cars had been through.
With the petrol, let's get one conversation over at a time. I think the petrol so negligible it's ridiculous. The argument was put up about the amount we used. The same argument put up that why not stop everyone going to football for one day in Melbourne? It's exactly the same amount of petrol. The gentleman from New South Wales, a politician, he probably hate me this, but I've forgotten his name. He quoted something like enough petrol for 200 years for 4,000 motor cars or something. I don't know what he was driving, but it was, his figures were utterly absurd. On the environmental side of it, and it's something I've got a great deal of interest in, even if I am a rally person, the sort of stuff that you throw in Kaipo doesn't do any harm. You've got to get permission to go in any case. I'd say 70% of the road stuff out in Australia is great. We have a country where we can put on an event like this. We've got the only country in the world where you can put on an event like this, and to me, you should turn around and say, look, we're going to put it on every 2 years and invite the world and make it something for publicity, which would be tremendous. The farmer side of it, yeah, I agree with them. I live 30 mile out. We have a rural, semi-rural council there. We know the problems that you can get into. The guy that put the event on is a very good friend of mine, but a couple of the things that were caused, one, the Bordertown incident, was absolute arrant stupidity.
What was that?
By putting, with the rain that happened, which you can't control, not being on the ball enough to realise that, as you said, 200 cars, put 30 cars past, all the experts got past like steam. Then they shovelled from 50 downward into the same hole, and when we got there, because we had that trouble in Tubrac, the farmers had blocked the road off. And no one way would I argue with them. I mean, they were absolutely dead correct to look at the road. It was absurd. But that is so small an incident. It's not small to the people it affects. The organisers should be capable of getting above this. But to can an event of the capability and the magnitude of around Australia for something small like that, no, it's only an organisational problem. And the organisers should be aware of what they can do to a road.
Do you find you've just got the capacity to get in the back seat and go to sleep?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I suppose I've done it for a long time. Marilyn keeps on telling me that's the part she found very hard. If she did at times, she's the only woman that's ever snored when she's awake. But she did find it a bit harder. I'm absolutely adapted. I started rallying when I was 23, and that's a long time ago. And I can get out of the driver's seat, or I can even navigate. And if there's 30 mile of straight road, and you've got the driver who you always treat the driver as an idiot, because if they weren't idiots, they'd be navigators, because I am basically a navigator. And you just say to the driver, get in there 30 mile, and there'll be a T-junction, turn left, and I will go to sleep straight away. And he'll wake me up when I hit the 30.
Conversely, if you're at the wheel, the thing is to stay awake.
Oh, yeah. Your concentration on staying awake gets to be of prime importance. We had a funny incident coming down to Albury. We had another South Australian crew fight.
This was in the final days of the trial.
Yeah, getting down to the final days, and everyone's really getting beat. And we were driving through, I don't know, it was Yass or one of those towns, they'll become the same, and a huge wide road, and I was driving, and you become very aware of the fact that you're going to sleep, and you are aware of the fact that people say, oh, how do you go to sleep driving? It's very easy. And
I think I know plenty of people who've almost done it on normal highway driving.
Oh yeah, it's so simple, it's unbelievable, and it's so darn dangerous. And we had this escort sitting behind us, some lads from Renmark, and they were in radio contact with us, and Marilyn was sitting in the navigator's seat, and Greg was in the back seat having a doze, and I got halfway through this town and turned right and tried to convert a an ordinary chemist shop and would drive in one, you know. And there were sort of loud screams of laughter from the car at the back and shouts over the radio, and Mervyn hit me on the shoulder. Just turned right on the main street. Went straight towards this chemist
Having
shop.
a gentle doze.
Just went straight off, you know.
Yeah.
That's one of the most extremely dangerous, you know. It's that was probably one of the criticisms about the event, because when I say I criticised the event, it was beautifully organised. Two criticisms to me: not enough social activity during the breaks, not enough time to be social, not enough rest over the length of time that we had, and not enough media coverage. And other than that, nobody could criticise the Repco as far as the organisation went. You know, it was brilliant. It was truly a brilliant event in that respect.
Well, that's well said, but I wonder if we could talk for a minute about your service crew, who really were just as inexperienced as the rest of the crew, the driving crew, excluding yourself. And there's always a problem keeping in touch. And I'd like you just to look for a moment at this tape. This is your service crew coordinator, Liz Burge.
We had a rally of our own, but we had the extra responsibility of worrying about our actual rally crew in addition to keeping ourselves alive and functioning. So I think I was calling on all sorts of survival skills and my knowledge of information resources in order to get me by.
Did you ever actually lose them?
We only ever lost them in that we couldn't keep radio contact with them, and that was to be expected, I think, at times because of the limitations of CB radio and the fact that sometimes atmospheric conditions meant that we couldn't use relay stations in places like Paraburdoo in Western Australia to use as links with our rally crew. So there were times when they literally were off the air, but there was nothing we could do about that. We just had to go to the base that we'd designed and then just sit and wait and try not to chew our fingernails.
Yeah, well, everything came out all right.
I was just thinking you something. She triggered me off then. We got a minute. We came out of Mount Gambier, and the CB radios were really playing up terribly. They were shocking. You know. You turn them on, and all you get's a brrr, you know, and trying to navigate and drive was upsetting. So we came in Mount Gambier, and I said to Mary, turn that WXYZ radio off. I had enough, you know, and we'll get an adjustment, get to Adelaide. And so we charged down this 11-kilometre section, which is a prelude to trialling, they called it. And we went in the most bottomless bog that we've ever been in our life. And we found out afterwards, our service crew had been sitting up about 50, 100 kilometres further up us with this huge 20-foot antenna up, standing up on the roof of the car trying to contact us, telling us not to go into that section. That's one of the times she lost contact with us. She never forgave us. We were stuck. Why were we stuck? We were going to tell you, you know, but the radio was making too much noise.
It seems to me that with an inexperienced crew in your car and an inexperienced service crew, you were doubling the odds against yourself, weren't you?
Yeah, the part of our service crew, although being inexperienced, was extremely, what would you say, capable. You know, Liz is a very capable person. The two mechanics who went over the west were very capable. So they adapted very quickly, and it was just unfortunate that one of them that we struck in on the crew that went to the west was a sleeper. He would never get another rally. You know, it's sad, but a nice guy, he done all the wiring in the car, but he just went to sleep in a half hour. And so he's no good, you know, he hasn't got the capacity to rally. But yeah, you're doubling the odds a bit, but well, that's the way we did it, you know.
On the question of danger and fatalities, as there were a couple of fatalities in the trial, are they necessary? Can they be avoided? What sort of thing leads to that kind of tragedy?
Carelessness on the crew's part mainly. Tiredness can cause the actual accident. In that case, as near as we can find out, and of course they quieten things down fairly well, the Peugeot is a very stable machine, very strong car, three very nice guys in it. They went around the corner and they hit a hole and they rolled. Now, you could take that Falcon that's out there now and you can take it down the road and roll at 60 mile an hour and you put it back on the wheels and drive it away again. Peugeot would be better than that. when the next car came up, by what we can hear, and this is only supposition or hearing, I didn't see it myself, the next car that came up was Dr. Caudle from South Australia, and he jumped out, the car was there, opened door, and they were dead. Badly smashed, and once more, by what we can hear, they had a loose car part in the car. Fatal. You know,
Something heavy.
something heavy and not strapped down. You know, if you hand a can of drink in a rally car, and this should go in an ordinary car. I mean, people who drive around with cans of drink in the car are straight out fools, to be quite honest. But you know, if we had a can of drink, we put it into a control, and there was a place that you drink the can of drink, and then you empty it, and then you put it in a bag in the back of the car. A good rally stuff.
So you secure all loose items no matter what.
But you never leave even a full can of drink, because you roll over and you've got, I don't know what they weigh, but they're a dangerous weapon. Now, if this story was true about the diff centre, and I think seeing that one of the boys needed his head taken off, there would have to be true. A diff centre is
Guided missile.
Oh yeah, it was, you know, and no way in the world could you get two people killed in the Peugeot rolling over in that section. It was, you know, it was ridiculous.
So the car itself was safe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Finally, and fairly briefly, you've mentioned a couple of times the prospect of this Peking to Paris. Is that what's ahead of you?
If they put it on, yeah.
Same crew?
Well, Merrin will be going. I don't know about my third one. He's not back in the fold yet. We'll probably get him back there, but he's sulking a bit. He's got no sense of humour. I mean, $7,000 a motor car. I mean, you know, he's a bit hurt. Basically the same crew. Some of our service crew won't go because we've learnt things. You know, some of our service crew will go. Liz, she'll be in Canada, unfortunately, so she's going to get over to Paris to see us finish. She's got a remarkable amount of faith.
Well, I certainly hope you do, and wish you the best of luck. So, Peter Mcarthur, trial driver, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, man. Great.